he skipped through the end of Genesis in a hurry, and I'm thinking, but there was a lot of other stuff that could have been
And
interesting.
again, he just flew right over the story of Tamar.
Yeah, just I don't know. Was he getting tired, or was his deadline to publish coming up? Seriously.
You wonder.
No, excuse me. Paula mentioned last week that she just couldn't get into this one, and um, initially I thought I was gonna like it as much as I liked Exodus, which I th thought was excellent.
Mhm.
This one,
Not so
I,
much.
I don't feel quite the same way about this one.
Well, his thesis, I can find it in the beginning.
Was pretty basic, yeah.
Is
Oh, here it is.
is that oh
Genesis is an ancient story. I don't mean to interrupt you, Catherine. I just happened to turn to it.
yeah.
And that we have to read it with an ancient mind.
Yeah. Think of the Old Testament as Israel's story, written in light of national trauma to encourage continued faithfulness to God.
Yeah.
And to learn to read it with ancient eyes. What did it mean to the people who wrote it? And going back to what Kathy said at the beginning of the prayers, you know, help us to know what this means for us.
Mhm.
And that's what we're kind of used to reading the Bible. How does this mean? What does this mean to me?
Mhm.
But really, I think we're from his standpoint, and he says there's all sorts of things he's not talking about, is that learn to read it for what it means to the people who wrote it.
Yeah. And I think that that is absolutely the first thing we do. I mean, he is one of the things he is very, very good at is teaching us that that particular skill, how to read with those, if as much as possible, with those lenses of an ancient reader. We can only do that a little bit. We can't. But that I think that is definitely first and foremost. And and when we do that, then I think we build the capacity to to be able to, in some ways, figure out what it says to us in our contemporary context. Um, and I think that, uh, I mean, and I think that it is really valuable to talk about those ancient themes because, um, gosh, we have not changed.
Nope.
And that's, and that's where I think we can gain some, at least some ability to stick with it. Jane Korsberg.
I like too that on the very last page, 108, he says, now it's up to you. Reread Genesis,
Yes.
filling out some of the details that we weren't able to cover and discovering. And I think it's that of any of the books, it's that rereading that reveals more and more.
Yeah.
Well, I was interested in page 109 in that further reading that he gives us. That first one sounds really interesting, and I was going to see if I could get it at the library. Joseph and the Passion of Our Lord.
Yeah, fast. Doesn't that sound
Page,
fast?
The art of reading scripture. Oh, the
That's the
art of reading
further,
scripture.
yeah, further reading.
yeah.
I actually bought, it's a Peter Enns book, but The Evolution of Adam. what the Bible does and doesn't say about human origins. I thought that one sounded really fascinating. I mean, I think they all sound really, really
Mhm.
fascinating. So, you
Oh,
know,
the evolution, Peter Enns, The Evolution of Atoms. Yeah.
so further reading is, the thing we do, right? We just keep learning and keep
I don't know how the Joseph story and the Passion story
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
intersect, or
Yeah.
what from the Passion story we can look back on Joseph. I'd have to read about Joseph again. This stuff in the Bible goes in one ear and out the other. I read
Exactly.
it and 2 days later I can barely remember it. I can't, it's just so dense.
Well, and I think we do have to take seriously the cultural narratives that have been either told to us, written for us, created in art. I mean, there are so many narratives that might not be exactly what is there
Mhm.
in scripture. And that's, the for a long time the only yes, I read Genesis, but for a long time the only really uh way I know Genesis is Joseph, right? And oh, that's right there at the end of I mean Joseph as a standalone story, not
Mhm.
necessarily as a story that's very present there in Genesis. So,
What
yeah, go ahead.
what I got out of this is I have never realized before reading his book how much of the book of Genesis is put together or written post exile.
Mhm.
Exactly. So let's do that.
We were never told.
Let's see if we can really identify these things that have been really important in what we've read here. That I mean, again, in seminary you'll learn all about the different academic veins, right? All of these different criticisms. And what Peter Enns is doing is really kind of a both a form criticism and what is the other one? The end of the story criticism. That's not the word, but
Yeah, I know what you mean.
um,
Yeah, summation.
is and so his Peter Enns um, um, point that this was put together mostly post-exilic for the purposes of, right? So let's fill in that blank. For the purposes of,
Well, to encourage the exilic people that God was faithful through everything.
I think that's a huge piece to encourage the post-exilic people that God is faithful and God is their God, no matter what, no matter when it doesn't feel like it or look like it. And so I mean, that's a piece that we have questioned over and over again when it comes to Jews in concentration camps. What is it uh, that buoys people, and is this one of those things that God is faithful no matter what, even when we don't experience God?
Well, I think that you know I actually counted these up between chapter 12 and chapter 28. God gives his blessing
Mhm.
12 times, is starting out with the first one is he's still Abram. I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great so that you will be a blessing. And he says that 12 times between chapter 12 and 28. It's like that's the
Big.
point of the whole story is to tell a story, but to get that in as much as possible. That's the real story, that God is faithful. And then he gives the blessing again in chapter 35 and then chapter 46 and at the very end at 48 when it turns actually into poetry. And it seems to me that's really what they want to say. God is making us a great nation, and he's blessing us and making our name great.
What chapters was that again, Catherine? I had my brain on something else. Chapters.
Well, it's just between the first, it's just constant throughout.
Yeah,
But
that's what I thought.
between chapter 12 and 28, he says that 12 times to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
Yeah, thanks. But you're right, that's the whole through the entire thing. And it goes even further because I'm also studying a book through Scripture Union of Ezekiel and of Job. But it talks about the same thing about God is going to bless you. And of course, they take it a little transactional, but that God is going to bless you throughout all of the problems, the things that you're going through. And at the end of Job, of course, God saying, I am God, period.
So, as a post-exilic people, what about the genealogies? How many genealogies did he 10, 12? What did he say? The number of genealogies.
Well, they're all listed on page 14.
Thank you. So yes, thank you. So the genealogies.
10 sections.
What is that? What does that contribute to? And a second part, another question is, why is it important that the second son receives God's and or Father's favor?
Yeah, even at the very end.
That's a question that really is sticking with me. I mean, I do think that for a people who are in the midst of chaos, hearing the genealogy is really important. This is where we came from. This is where we came from, over and over and over again. I mean, I can really see the importance of that. And so that one I kind of understand. Sharon?
Well, it was interesting to me reading the genealogy of Esau
Mm-hmm.
that when we read the genealogies, the other genealogies, we kind of see where we came from.
Okay.
But with Esau, who married outside of his faith,
Okay.
we see where a whole bunch of enemies came from.
Six, Esau.
But then that's kind of countered by Joseph.
Yeah.
Because, and I was thinking, because you had talked about you're Jewish if your mother was Jewish, and yet here we have Joseph and his sons are part of the 12 tribes. Their mother wasn't Jewish. So to me, that was interesting.
Well, I mean, and just a whole bunch of things like last week. I mean, this just has been a funny thing that I noted when the angels and God came to visit Abraham to say that Sarah would have a son. And he killed the calf and offered it up with milk and cream.
Mm.
And they ate it all together.
That was a no-no.
Well,
Well,
apparently
yet.
not yet.
Not yet, no, you're right. Yeah, because I have this Jewish on Facebook thing where they don't have meat and milk in the
No,
same.
no, you don't.
Why? And I look at that stuff and I say, why? What does it mean? What?
Where does that come in
Yeah, what?
in the pre and post exilic? Where do the 613 laws come in that?
Well, they would have been there already because those came from wandering in the desert.
So
Talking about Leviticus or Deuteronomy.
those are wandering in the desert. So that's before. So we have Exodus, we have exile, and we have previous to that is all of this, is all of what we've read, right? Am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So now you can tell me I'm wrong here because I know I'm checking something out. Part of as I understand, part of the reason, part of, not the total, but part of the reason for having commandments and those 613 commandments, part of I mean, there's all sorts of practicality, cleanliness issue. I mean, all sorts of things. But one of them is to preserve God's purity, to preserve God's. We people should do nothing that would that would disturb God's holiness and purity.
Does that have to do with the whole point, not just of the commandments, but the final curtain of the temple where you couldn't go in unless you were the high priest?
Right,
once he
right. We
preserved
have
God's
to
otherness.
the
Yeah.
Holy of Holies.
Nice.
Yeah, to preserve God, to separate, right? To
I
preserve.
think more to separate.
So, I mean, I don't know what that. So if we have Genesis, which is all, seems to be all about who comes from who, God's consistent blessing, as Catherine has outlined, and that constant theme that God, I am the Lord your God, and I am always with you. In the midst of multiple gods, so Genesis and then Exodus is all in the midst of multiple gods. We are not at this point, or understanding that. Well, anyway, yeah, in the midst of multiple gods. So we do these things to preserve that authority of the one God whom we call Yahweh. I don't know. Those are my thoughts.
Yeah, and what does that have to do with the second, with the blessing I get, but this, the concept that maybe God is saying, you may think that the oldest one always gets it, but that's not me. I'm looking for.
I don't.
I look at that as kind of what we see in the New Testament, the underdog.
Yeah.
That it's not the top dog that always wins.
Right.
Hard to think of Jacob as the underdog.
That's true.
Not with
all he did.
Well,
right.
it does. I mean, it also goes to the absolutely and completely flawed nature of humanity, and that that these people, the underdog, is not is flawed as well, as much or more than any others. I don't know that I'll ever quite figure out the whole idea
And that's okay.
of why God blesses that second, that underdog. Why there's an order at all, but in the cultural sense, I do understand that. So is it some sort of, one of the things I believe about Jesus is that those stories show us the turning upside down of the cultural and conventional wisdom of the time. The last shall be first and the first shall be last, empowering those and bringing to the center those who are on the margins. The constant and consistent stories like that. Is this similar? Is it raising up of those who are who in the culture, and maybe even more so in the post-exilic culture?
Here's a funny question though. Yeah, in the one case, it's Rebecca. It's who, because her son is the favorite of the two, who kind of pushes, I think it's Rebecca, pushes through the blessing rather of the first son than the second son that I just keep thinking, okay, how does that relate with God's choosing the underdog, or at least choosing it through the mothers? Because in both cases, kind of, although what was it says that there's twins inside of you and the younger one is going to serve the older, or the older one's going to serve the younger. And we probably won't ever. Is that one of the questions on our to-do list in heaven? Or not?
That question is not high on the questions that I will ask when I get there.
No,
that is not high on my list. It is a curiosity, and
it's our angels on the head of a pin.
It's somewhat that way, but I also have come to realize that there's a reason, and I'm not talking about a divine reason. There's a reason why these people who recorded or told this story from the vantage point they were, what they had an agenda.
Oh yeah.
And I find it somewhat sad that we're so far removed that we really just can only guess at the agenda. I think Peter Enns is clearer than me, because Peter Enns knows more than me. But
one thing on page 17, he says, he's talking about, on the third paragraph, we find ourselves reading about some struggle at every point in the story. And then if a few sentences down, and if we need more convincing that struggling is a big issue in Genesis, look at Jacob. He literally wrestles with God, and his new name is Israel. Israel comes from a word that means to struggle. That is exactly what we would expect from a story written by exiled Israelites who are struggling with their current conditions and ultimately their new identity.
Well, there you go.
And nothing has changed.
Nothing has changed.
You're right.
I mean, you could say that has been the story of the Jewish people since the very beginning.
I think that's a human story too.
Sure.
Yeah.
I don't know what this has made me think about, that Genesis was put together post-exilically, is Exodus, because there's no archaeological evidence for a large group of people exiting ever being in Egypt, let alone exiting Egypt. And going forward, was Genesis also, or Exodus also written primarily post-exilically?
Hey guys, remember who remembers?
I don't remember him saying that in that
Mhm.
book.
We did
Well,
learn
they
that
say-
this isn't chronological.
Right.
It's not Genesis happened, Exodus. It's not chronological.
Right.
well, he says on page 8, and the second main paragraph, that Israel's story began to be written down around the time of King David. And that at the end of that paragraph, they probably also began writing down their own ancient oral stories, recording their tradition from hundreds and hundreds of years back. So,
But it doesn't mean they didn't polish it.
Or interpret it. I mean, we always, always, always have to read with that understanding that a story is always told with interpretation. It absolutely cannot be told any other way. And
That's why I love reminding myself that it's a story. It's a story.
yeah, yeah. Well, and as we say that, we know we live in a world where there are some who somehow read this as fact, and
Or certain parts of it as fact.
yeah, yeah, it wouldn't last too well in Peter N's classroom, I don't think.
I like the part going back with what you said. I think, was it Mary, Catherine or Mary Lou? My brain is in two places. The part that says they had, now that they were a nation, they certainly began to keep records, genealogy.
Yeah.
They were settled, they had peace and time. And says, which were the foundations for the book. And I'm assuming that the historical books were fact, as far as books 1 and 2 Samuel and 1 or 2 Kings that do the reigns of Israel's kings.
Well, let's talk about the nature of history. History is always written by the winners, always.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying that the listing of who, what, when, where. I'm not thinking of the winners thing.
I don't know.
Maybe.
I went for a hike yesterday at Fort Ridgely State Park here, about an hour and a half away from the Twin Cities. And Fort Ridgely, between that area and St. Peter and Mankato, Minnesota, is the site of the Indian Wars of 1862. And if you read history from that place, your understanding and view would be so skewed that you have no clue what really happened.
Mhm.
And
We don't hear either.
well, I know that. I mean, that's the point I'm making, is that history, monuments, history is written from a very particular view. And it's only recently that the I mean, there is I wish I'd taken a picture on one of those plaques. It said, it at the time when the white settlers were being given the land confiscated from, well, I don't think the word they used was confiscated. That's my word, from the Indians. And then there was a little bit about, well, those people might not have completely understood what the document that they put their X on really was about. I mean, and so that all just goes to what's the nature of history.
So as a sidebar to that, just for fun, as we come up on the next year, let's pretend that we're the British looking at the Revolutionary War history. That could be kind of fun. Those darn people that didn't appreciate what they had.
Yeah, yeah.
She's-
I mean,
Well, Queen Elizabeth II said she'd take us back as long as we paid all our back taxes.
well, and I think that that's why that little monologue in Hamilton by King George is so funny, not just because it's funny, but because isn't that what truth telling is all couched in yeah, those
We are still considered
who's the loser in that?
we're still considered ungrateful
Hmm.
treason, jokingly, of course. Now here's a joke, but anyway, but yeah, this is
Jokingly, I'm not sure. But so I mean we can in our modern day conflicts see where where it comes from and why we are somewhat where we are today. Not I'm talking about Israel and
I like
Palestine.
Catherine on page 9, going on what you said, going back to what we were talking about. I like where it said they look back to make sense, and this is a big part of what he's saying, make sense of the tragedy of their recent history. Are we still God's people? Does he always still call for us? So they began retelling the story one last time. Israel's and written in light of national trauma. So this is his whole thesis, which is interesting if you think about the different ways that it's written in the different parts of Genesis. It's like, that was kind of interesting to put down. And who thought that up? He did a good. Now I may have to keep this book. I was going to donate it to a deacon, but now I may have to keep it.
It does. I mean, now that we're kind of returning to the beginning pages, it's like, oh yeah, better read the pages again because
yeah. Now it makes sense.
Well, and on the beginning of top of page 9, the Babylonians marched into Jerusalem and by 586 BC had bulldozed the temple, God's sacred house, and taken much of the population captive. And so Israel looked around, no king, no land, no temple. Who is Israel without a king, without a land, and without a temple? It looked like God had broken his promise and abandoned his own people.
and isn't that the same observation we see when we get to World War II?
Mm-hmm. Everything was taken from them. Land, everything, synagogue, the whole.
No land, no temple. It looked like God. How do you keep faithful to God when everything looks like God is not faithful?
It's the same story of the American Indians. They lost their land, their language.
Yeah.
Everything was decimated because they were made to look and be educated like white people. But yet from the ground up, they began to emerge again. I mean, there's schools now that teach Native American languages.
Yeah.
Is it connected at all to Jesus on the cross? My God, why have you forsaken me?
That's interesting. Everything is gone.
Yeah.
I don't know. In our current climate, a lot of times what I hear myself saying is, how long? How long, oh Lord?
Yeah. Well, and the answer to that question is millennia, right?
Next year in Jerusalem.
How long? How long?
God's time is not our time.
I tend to think a lot about my faith and if I were incarcerated in Alligator, Alcatraz, what,
Yeah,
is my faith strong enough to sustain me?
no, I
I
think
don't know. I don't have the answer to that, really.
And that goes on a lot of different ways too.
And isn't it interesting that one of the stories that has come out of Alligator Alcatraz is that the people's Bibles were taken away from them?
Oh,
Yeah,
Really?
Yeah.
Oh dear.
and
Well, it's kind of interesting, putting it on a smaller level. We're not allowed to give books or Bibles to the jail that has, well, I could give this Peter Enns book if they're put together with glue, but if they're stapled together, we can't give them because they consider the staples a weapon. And that's in Rock County, Wisconsin. And we all kind of sit and snicker at it like, yeah, right, a staples. It's very sad. So any Bibles, which we are, by the way, allowed to give out, have to be the glue thing rather than little things that people take so seriously. I can't see why a Bible would be taken from anyone, but
Well,
they're
because
taken,
it's an-
but
a
they're taken
Bible-
away in other places.
a Bible today is resistance.
yes, it
That's
is.
why
Thank you.
That's why
Thank you.
it's being taken away. Because
Yes.
it is a symbol of resistance.
Yes.
But
Yes.
the people who are taking those Bibles away don't even know that.
No, they're
No,
following.
They don't know that.
Yeah, I think I disagree. I think they do subconsciously. I do.
Because, Trump said one time, this was during his first term, I think, he said, "Oh, I love the Bible. We have Bibles on every table at Mar-a-Lago. We read the Bible all the time." And I'm thinking,
When do you do that? Tell me what's in there. Yeah, well, I mean, he clearly had no idea what he was.
2 Corinthians going to a bar.
Yeah,
I have a question.
but I think that's exactly it.
I have a question that kind of bothered me about the end of this book.
Yes,
Well, all of
ma'am.
a sudden, I'm way on page 184 and 180, or 104, 105. And I'm thinking, why, oh, why? Like you said, why does he not take the time to put in the fact that Tamar and Judah, and well, the dream that, he talks about Joseph a bunch. He sort of feels like he should, but it's sort of he just goes through it because you get the feeling he's supposed to go through that.
That he's
Rather
supposed to
than
go
that he's
through the
using it-
Joseph story?
Yeah, rather than that he's using it to boost up his thesis. Although he talks about on page 105, he talks about Joseph and the remnant. But I don't know, that whole last part kind of got me thinking, why? Although I did think there was one thing on page 108 at the 104 at the very last paragraph in the middle that was important, where he says, this Joseph puts him stealing the cup. The scene echoes Jacob and Rachel's flight from Laban, a revised version of the stolen idol incident.
Where are you?
I'm on the very bottom of page 104, the last paragraph halfway down. And what he does is he seems to be just relating the story rather than, but he says, Joseph is reenacting his own story with the other favorite son. So that, the idea that it is a reenact, like you said, writing from the post-exilic, it is a reenactment of his life. And then he just kind of goes on to leave it as a story. And then he goes on page 105, an important thing in the second full paragraph, halfway down, it says, do a word search for remnant in the book, further books. the remnant is tied to Israel's return from exile, so that he takes Joseph is also part of the exilic story. That I thought was important.
Well, and you certainly could read that pulled out section. God sent me before you to preserve for you a remnant on earth.
Mhm.
That would certainly resonate with
Yeah, that was a
post-exilic
point.
people.
mhm.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
I
Sam.
mean, in some sense, he does skip through, and just does skip through the this part of Genesis because of the because of his own agenda, right?
Right.
And that I think I am willing to give him that. Because there are piles of books written on Tamar. There are piles, I shouldn't say piles. There are a number of books written on the women who have been abused throughout these stories.
So that he doesn't need to get into that.
Well, I wish he would get into it,
Yeah.
but I understand that that's not part of his agenda. Darn.
He doesn't really get into any of the women.
None at all. He has no,
Yeah.
none
I
of
mean,
the,
No
he really
interest.
glosses over Dinah.
yes, he does.
And but
Which
then
is,
we could recommend to those of you who are wishing to have more stories of the women in Genesis.
Will
I can't
Gaffney,
think of.
yeah,
Yes, Will Gaffney's book.
which is tough going, but great going. A Womanist Midrash. He does in his further reading. You got to give him credit for. He does have the Torah, a woman's commentary.
Yeah,
and
I see that.
a woman's Bible commentary edited by all of those women.
Oh yeah, the Torah one.
Yeah, I mean, so he is pointing us in those directions for further work and
For us women radicals.
yeah. I don't know. That sermon I preached on Sunday about Mary and Martha, for a moment, it's about how long I considered, because I had nothing to say about the men in that story. Absolutely nothing. It was a story. I completely excluded anyone other than our sisters, Mary and Martha, and what was going on there. And I thought for this long, and I thought, well, it's been a long time that, women haven't been the center of any of these stories. So today they are. And
Sharon, sometime later, I'd like to discuss with you the sermon we experienced last Sunday.
Because we didn't hear anything.
Yeah.
what happened?
Well,
If you can say it
quickly. Our priest opened with part of the reading of Jesus telling Martha that Mary had chosen the better part. And then he knelt down at the altar on the rail and stayed there for about, I don't know, somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes, I'll say. I wasn't looking at my watch. And got up and said a prayer, and that was it.
That was the sermon time?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, the idea that we were to experience what Mary experienced, sitting at the feet of Jesus. Being quiet.
Mary was studying. She wasn't praying.
Yeah.
And
it was, yeah.
it was interesting. I think the idea was that Martha was consumed with the chaos of having to provide for all of these people, and that Mary had taken a step out of that.
So
My
he didn't talk
guess,
anything
but I
about,
don't know.
that being a time source.
But you still have to feed the people. I mean, to me, it's always been a difficult
It
It
is.
is.
reading.
Well,
I did see an
listen.
interesting. Do any of you know who the Reverend Joseph Yu is?
YUE.
YOO.
Oh,
He's,
Oh, I've
I
seen
think,
it.
yeah, he's an Asian American Episcopal priest in Houston. I've seen parts of their church services, I would guess very low church. But he does little snippets on Facebook, and I find him very interesting. Anyway, he talks somewhat about translations and about how each of them is an interpretation. And that to say one is better than the other, he goes through the ones that he thinks may be closer to what the original intent was. But anyway, with the story of Mary and Martha, he says that in some interpretations, it could be interpreting the Greek that Mary chose the good part, not the better part, and that makes you think about different things.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I'll have to look it up.
Well, if you're interested in this story, listen to Kathy's sermon on Sunday at Grace Episcopal Church. It was excellent.
Yeah, it was.
Absolutely superb.
Kathy, where do we get that on your Facebook page or what?
You can go to YouTube and search Grace Episcopal Church, Minneapolis. There's many Grace Episcopal churches, so
do you still post to Mother Kathy Blogspot?
I do. So it's there. Yeah.
Say that again, Sharon.
Mother Kathy blogspot.
Yeah, I think it's mother.blogs. What is it? Let me see if I can find it and then I'll do it for you. Yeah, I keep posting. Yeah. There it is right there. motherkathy.blogspot.com.
That's one word.
motherkathy.blogspot.com.
Blogspot's1.com.
And that got set up 20 years ago. I didn't know enough how to do that in those days. So the fellow who set it up called it Mother Kathy. If I had the choice, I would have named it differently, but he did it and I'm not changing it now. So there it is. But yeah, that goes back years. You can find just about every word I've ever said in my life.
One thing I just saw on Genesis 49, verse 22 is interesting. Well, this whole business is interesting. All these sons and what's going to happen to them. But when you get to page 22, verse 22, Joseph is a fruitful bough by a spring. His branches run over the wall. The archers fiercely attacked him. They shot at him and pressed him hard. Yet his bow remained taut and his arms were agile by the hands of the mighty one of Jacob, by the name of the shepherd, the rock of Israel.
Okay, I gotta have you tell me that chapter again. I'm turning pages and
And
49.
what translation are you reading?
It's a new revised version.
Okay, what chapter, 49 verse what?
22,
Oh, I got it, Yeah,
that Joseph is a,
22. Joseph is a fruitful bough, a bough.
yeah, and I was talking about that article about Joseph and the Passion,
Yeah.
and that's the way Jesus was, except they shot at him and pressed him hard, and he did not remain taut. He gave up. He let them attack him. So totally different than Joseph.
Who wrote that article that he? Is it an article or a book?
It's a part of a book.
Joseph and the Passion.
Yeah.
Ellen Davis and Richard Hayes. Those are well-respected people. The art of reading scripture. It would be interesting because I mean it sounds to me like that's a book about how you read scripture,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
as Peter Enns has been teaching us about how to read scripture. Well,
There's another there while you're there, chapter 48, verse 15.
48 or 49.
48,
Chapter-
verse 15. It's really a nice, beautiful poetry. He blessed Joseph and said, "The God before whom my ancestors Abraham and Isaac walked, the God who has been my shepherd all my life to this day."
Mm-hmm.
That's really beautiful. The God who has been my shepherd all my life to this day.
We're just telling the people in Babylon, he still is your shepherd.
Yeah.
And in them my name be, and in them let my name be perpetuated, and the name of my ancestors Abraham and Isaac, let them grow to a multitude on the earth, which is exactly what Enns is saying.
Mm-hmm.
Well, people, I'm not going to be here next Friday, or if I do, I come in on my phone, and I'm not sure because we'll see what Daniel and Rachel have on their minds.
Well, we have finished this book. So we have some things to consider. One is, in general, what do we want to do next? And in particular, would we be ready for that for next Friday? And if not, do we take the Friday off, or do we look at the lectionary readings in Luke because Luke is fun?
I'd like to do that, but maybe we should take a break and then
You're
come
not
back.
here. Go ahead, Sharon.
Oh,
No,
I
you
was just waving my hand around.
I did buy Amy Jill's book because I had intended to buy it
Yeah.
anyway. So it was a good excuse to buy it.
Yep.
And if you want to do it, it'll take us some time because it's not going to be a chapter at a time.
No.
We'll have to break it down into story by story by story. And even she starts out with the lost coin, the lost sheep, and the lost boy, and we'd have to do those three, each one of those per week. I mean, we'd read the whole of it, but talk about them each time. So, I mean, this would be fabulous. It would take us quite some time. So I'm wondering if that we do meet and talk about the lectionaries for next week, and give us another bit of time to really to think about what we want to do and whether we want to dive into
Thank you for joining.
something
Well,
like
So it's not as easy as it sounded.
it's. I mean, it'll.
well, we don't have to read the whole thing.
Well,
I really like Amy Jill Levine.
I do. I think she's
like the book.
fabulous. I mean, it's not. It's gonna just take us some time. I don't. hard and easy are,
They're
I-
relative.
yeah, it is. I think we have to, I think the whole idea of doing the parables is fabulous. And from
Yeah.
her and her doing I've read book
That
upon
appealed to
book.
me.
Huh?
Doing the parables appealed to me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it. I
Yeah.
like it.
I've read many books on parables and
Well, if there's one you think would suit us better.
no, I really think this would be great. I think
I
her
do.
take on this is one that's really important.
When are you going on your
Oh,
cruise?
Not till the winter.
Oh, okay.
I'm not going. Well, I got a week in Door County and at the end of August.
Christ the King.
But other than that, I'm really not.
Yeah, I'm for Amy Jill Levine. I really
I
like
do.
her.
Okay, do we want to say that? Let's do Amy Jill, and we'll start not next week, but the week after.
Yes.
And then and I did get a start on this because I wanted to make sure that. So it'll take some putting together, each week that so we can.
So we'd start Amy Jill August 1st. Do we
okay.
want to take next week off, or do we want to do the lectionary?
Okay, next week, what is today? The 25th. Next week is August 1st.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, so it's not. Oh my gosh,
Next week's August 1st, and then
So August 8th is what we're
8th.
talking about.
Yeah.
and I'll be in Door County on the 29th, but that's still, I could still consider that as a possibility.
Well, it may take time to receive the book if you're ordering it.
Pardon me?
If you're ordering the book, it might be wiser to start on the 8th of August.
Oh yeah, definitely not next week. No, that's too
Yeah,
quick.
because sometimes it takes almost 2 weeks to get a book from Thrift Books.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's where
So-
mine's coming from.
Yeah, mine too. And so we could check in, if we checked in with each other next week, if we did the lectionary and checked in with each other, then we could see if we thought we'd be ready to start Amy Jill on the 8th. Because, if, for example, we don't get it till the 6th, maybe we wouldn't be ready to start
Right.
on the
So
8th.
let's just report in next week and see, who's got the book and how long it's going to take, and we can go from there.
Okay.
So,
And so next week we'll do Luke, but are there choices for next week? If there are, then
there
let me
are.
know which choice you
I
want.
will take. Let's see. I'm preaching on. I'm not Oh, where is the 27th? The Sunday that's coming up. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I am preaching. Am I preaching? I'm presiding at Grace on the 3rd. I'm not sure if I'm preaching yet, but anyway, yes. Let me take a look at the readings, and I'll let you know.
Okay.
Okay.
Hey,
right,
Kathy, can I
bye.
tell you something?
Yeah.
I made my daughter make me a picture that says woman was the first word spoken from John. So now I'm going to call her and say, I need another picture that says the Bible is resistance.
It is. It is. You bet it is.
I love it.
Yeah. Okay, guys. We'll see you
Great.
next Friday.
Bye.
Okay, cool.
Bye.
Bye-bye.